Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 205 of Kouryer podcast. Our today's guest is Miss Anya Elvidge. She's an 2D and 3D environment artist. She's also open for commissions for freelance jobs as well. So, if anyone in a studio or outsourcing a studio or just anyone out there who wants to go check out her profile and portfolios, links are down in the description below. You can go do that as well. She has worked with the studios such as Supercell, Amazon Games, and also Creative Assembly from United Kingdom. Now, of course, as I mentioned down in the description in the for contact section, you can find the links to her Instagram, ArtStation, her personal website, Twitter profile, and also YouTube channel, which the YouTube channel is actually really underrated and amazing. There's like so many like nice breakdowns for, stylized, environment arts and, the whole process. There's some, good videos there I personally enjoy. So if you're into that sort of stuff, especially learning methods and techniques in Unreal Engine, just the design philosophies, in general, stuff like that, do check it out. And well, with that out of the way, how are we doing today?
Hey, I'm really good, thank you. I've had a usual busy work day, but now I'm chilling and taking some time to wind down.
All right, awesome. I'm just out of curiosity, what was your first impression of when you saw the message for podcast invitation on Twitter? I'm kind of curious.
Well, it's always the first thing that I'll do is look up what's been, what the deal is with the podcast or whatever. And I was surprised at how many episodes you had. 205 now? That's like amazing commitment to do that many episodes. And I saw a lot of names that I recognized as well. So you're obviously doing a lot of good work with so many people. So yeah, it's really, really awesome.
Thank you. And all right, so now we can go to the signature question of the podcast, which is give us a little introduction on how you got into the world of visual arts and design. So basically, the story of how you basically ended up becoming an artist, choosing art as like a kind of like your main quest in this life,
Yeah. Well, I've always done art. Like, I always drew horses when I was younger. That was my thing. But in terms of going into the industry, I think very last minute was looking at university courses, and I was going for like fine art course open days at university. And I'd been on kind of 50-50 whether I wanted to do science or art at university level, and then I discovered online a course at De Montfort University in Leicester for game art, which teaches you 2D and 3D, but it's mostly a 3D centric course. So I ended up there, which is where I learned all my kind of basic skills. And during that time, I think the way that I see university is it's a good time to just experiment with, like, do I want to be stylized or realistic, or do I want to be a character artist or concept or whatever? And that was a good time to just figure out what I was doing and set me off on the right trajectory. And from there, I ended up doing a traineeship, I think is the technical term, at Creative Assembly, which was where my first industry job was. So it was quite a always have done art, I'm going to do art now kind of thing.
All right, awesome. And by the way, I'm just curious, you said you mentioned science. What field of STEM field in science were you interested in pursuing actually, aside from art?
For my A-levels, which is what you tend to do before you go on to university, I did biology and chemistry, and I was looking to go into some sort of potentially medical field, but it never went far enough for me to start choosing specific things I wanted to do. I just was really into my sciences, so I did art and science at school and stuck with those for a couple of years.
All right, awesome. And well, I mean, I kind of mentioned in the introduction that you're a 2D and 3D environment artist, but I want to get in a little bit more specific. What is your main branch of design that you're focusing on? And tell us about your experience from the start of it until now.
Well, it's a real tough one to kind of pinpoint exactly what I do in terms of, that's why I tend to say very generically and vaguely that I'm a 2D and 3D environment artist, because I kind of do a bit of everything. I've done like background painting, like viz dev stuff, like kind of very basic blocky 3D things, concept art, like actual assets for games. I've done a bit of everything. So that ended up coming about as a result of not really knowing what I wanted to do when I was at uni, and just I always loved environments. I love designing spaces and color, and I don't find I can do that so much with characters. So I love everything environment, so I just do everything environment. And so if you look at my portfolio, it's just just colorful environments in 2D and 3D. I'm a 2D and 3D environment artist. It's just, yeah, very vague.
All right. And no, that's actually quite well-rounded. Like environment artists, like full stack environment artists. Is that a thing in art? Like full stack, like in web developments, like they have full stack web developer, like both front end and back end. Like, is that a thing in art? Actually, I'm kind of curious. Like,
I don't think we use the term full stack. I guess generalist, like environment generalist, I guess you'd say. I'm a bit of a jack of all trades with environment stuff for sure.
That's kind of like you're downplaying yourself, because usually when you say jack of all trades, it's usually people who are not specialists, but you are actually, I think you're pretty good with environments art. Like if anyone sees your portfolio, they realize. But yeah, I kind of understand your point, but yeah, and I kind of saw something. I think there was also one of your pinned tweets on Twitter, which about like I think the Visible Woman tweet, which kind of popped off. I think in that you said like I'm into like abandoned environments with greenery. What could you describe that to me? Like why?
Yeah. I love the combination of kind of abandoned spaces, like often industrial, and the contrast of usually it would be like brickwork, metal, sheet metal, stuff that's really degraded, falling down, and that versus like lovely, lush green plant life, flowers, water, fish swimming around. I just love it. So most of my stuff ends up being a combination of some sort of ruined building and some ivy and some plants, and that's kind of it. That's how I do my art. I just think it's great. I used to do a lot of a few years ago. I used to do a lot of like exploring abandoned buildings, and I'd like do loads of research online, try and find places on Google Maps. No one in like the urban exploration community will tell you where the abandoned buildings are, because a bunch of people will go and like set them on fire. So you have to be really savvy about figuring out where these places are, how you're going to get to them, where you're going to park your car so that security aren't going to come and like call the police. So yeah, I just used to do that a lot, and it inspired me to do a lot of these kind of abandoned building inspired but super lush, lovely places. I just like them. They're just chill, nice to be in.
And would you go do all of those alone, or you had your mates or friends with you while going to explore abandoned places? I assume that's not the most safest thing to do alone, I guess.
Yeah, it was a bit of a mix. I kind of like, with the abandoned building thing, I don't like being responsible for someone else. Like if I get caught, it's on my head. It's my problem and I have to deal with it. Whereas if someone's with me, especially someone who has like an idealized version in their head of what it's going to be like, if something bad happens, I will feel terrible. So I kind of prefer just being able to go and be like, it's my problem if something terrible happens. But I've taken people before to ones that I'm a bit less nervous about. But I kind of prefer, you can kind of sneak around a bit better if you're on your own and people won't spot you.
Now that I think of it, it would be, I think, ideal if I understand what you mean. I mean, I kind of have the same mentality as you. I like to do things solo, especially if it's endangered like that. But I think it would be kind of cool to have like a tech support back in a van or a car somewhere, while flying the drone to survey the area and giving you info, kind of like that. Oh my god, I'm getting ideas right now. That would be actually really fun.
Yeah, you need to set up a full-on like urban exploration, like get a big van with like 10 screens inside of it. That's great.
Yeah, and you make a YouTube channel for it, and yeah, you just go explore places. There are YouTube channels, of course, that do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would be kind of interesting. Like, here's another thing. Maybe we're getting sidetracked here, but we can get into the philosophy of this later. But to me, the thing that makes kind of life kind of fun for me is just thinking of these ideas and doing them hopefully eventually, but right not I can't do that right now for many reasons. But like, because right now most of us, I mean everyone at some point, at some stage in our life, and it might even last for the rest of our lives, we have to kind of get financial stability first, because that's the first thing we learn when we grow up in the world as it is today. Then after that, when you see, like, look at most people, it's just
Oh, I lost you. Yeah.
yeah, for a bunch of them, it's just they don't even realize it. It's fun. I'm not saying it judging people or anything like that, but I'm just observing, just stating an observation. It's just they want to make more money. They want to make more money. Everyone wants to make more money. But the reason is kind of interesting when you look at people. Like, for most people, is they want to make more money to increase the quality of the hedonistic fun they have. And it's fine, by the way. Like, we all want to do that, to some extent. But when it's go past that, like, there's nothing else for most people. For me, there needs to be some sort of excitement, like some mission, some purpose. Like, maybe, like, for example, having, especially, I would do this alone, but if I could have a team, like, as you said, like, going and adventuring and documenting abandoned places, dangerous places. Sure, maybe in the 59th place where I go, I might sleep on a rock and die, but at least I lived happy. I lived doing what I loved, Or maybe if I get injured, like, I would be happy. I would be smiling, because to me, life isn't just like, sure, of course, I need to get financial stability because money is good. You can't get enough of it, But it's just what's past that. People need to see what's past the hill of financial stability after that. Come on. Like, and the excitement could be like a lot of things for most people. But to me, it's just, making art, sharing the knowledge that I can, give out to people, like basically leaving an impact. But that is like a non-individualistic answer. But the individualistic answer, I kind of gave it to you. Excitement, adventure, finding new ways to, be creative and have fun and just, feel that feeling of rush, like rush of adrenaline. Not in terms of adrenaline junkiness, but you get the point.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, for sure, when I was like very deep into this urban exploration thing that I was doing for a while, it was an adrenaline thing for sure. Like, it's terrifying going around these places because you don't know what's going to happen, but it's just so fun. And doing it in summer when it's warm and lush, and I take some food with me and I'd just like hide somewhere and just like chill and just be like, oh, this is so nice. There's birds everywhere. There's no people, hopefully. And yeah, it's just nice. I really, really enjoyed it. And it's really inspiring as well for just my art. And I do watch a lot of the YouTube channels, the urban exploration ones. I live vicariously through them at the moment because I don't really get a chance to go out myself.
Yeah, and like if you think about it, just going into a very dangerous place, like abandoned place, and just taking pictures, having a dashcam footage with you or something, and just taking footage from there or just pictures. I mean, that's enough. It's like, in my brain, it's like a video game. You go there, your mission is to take pictures and evidence, and all right, a couple of dogs and some weird, like, sketchy people with guns are after you. But you did the mission. You just need to survive and get out. Like,
That's it. It's gaming in real life.
Exactly. But it's kind of like in hardcore mode. You don't really respawn, unfortunately. Hopefully the next patch will be fixed, And yeah. But yeah, now here's an interesting thing. An interesting question. Let's go back to the track of art for a second again. How does your design process usually go anytime you want to start working on a piece, maybe an environment piece? What's the structure of your pipeline look like? I mean, of course, on your YouTube channel, you already provided information in video formats, and people can check it out. But I want to hear it from your own mouth. How do you?
Yeah, for sure. So usually, there's like a lot of. I mean, coming at it from the perspective of like a personal project, usually I've been inspired by something I've seen in real life. For instance, it could be something as simple as like a shop doorway that has cool tiles or an interesting door or something. So I'll usually start with like one key thing in my head that has inspired me, maybe a certain tree or a plant or whatever. So that's my like entry point, and I'll usually start a Pinterest board and like branch out from that. So things that I liked about it, say a door, I'll look up doors, then I might find something that has a cool door and cool tiles. And I start mashing together all these pictures on, say, Pinterest. From there, I'll start sketching out ideas for like a scene that I want to do. Sometimes I'll do it in VR. So I've got an Oculus Rift headset, and sometimes I'll just plonk that on and just like, because it's nice to operate in 3D space without having to fight with like Blender or whatever. But it gives me a good like 3D space to operate in. You can kind of feel out the scale a little bit better. And then I'll just do a bunch of like scribbling in Photoshop to figure out some like thumbnails, but they're like not really thumbnails, they're really ugly. From there, I'll start building up more in 3D. So this is the point where I can either deviate to like a concept, or I can start going into like the 3D side of stuff a little bit more. But usually I'll build out something a little bit more solid in 3D and light it inside, say, Unreal Engine. It kind of gives me the vibe a little bit more, I guess, and I can build a bit more out, like flesh it out so it's more of a solid thing. Which means that when I start doing the concepting properly drawing over it, figuring out the details, it means that if I opt to take that into 3D, I actually already have a 3D block out that's quite solid. So then the concept and the 3D will mirror each other really nicely. I don't have to like look at a concept and try and figure out, well, how deep is that nook in the wall, or how long is that path, because I already have it. And yeah, from there I'll just start building up in usually over my very messy 3D block out, just start building up and painting, which my process with painting has changed massively over the last few years, and I still don't really feel like I have a workflow for painting, and I still very much feel like I'm learning when it comes to that stuff. But yeah, so basically every concept I do looks like it's in a different style because I'm still figuring everything out. But yeah, by the time I've got a concept, usually I've got a pretty good idea of what I'm doing. And then I'll start modeling everything out. And I do all my modeling, then all my sculpting, then all my texturing. I work in passes. So I don't just like make one thing up to full. I work everything up in passes. It's a very long process. I think the last personal project I did, it was like 3D, was a long time ago, like a couple of years ago at this point. And I started a concept for a new one and then just never finished it. And so I need to get back on that.
All right. And yeah, I think I don't know. I guess for a lot of people, it's kind of the same. Like they do things in passes, especially for things like environments, I guess, because you need to, like of course you do the blackout, then like the medium level details and modeling, then high detail modeling, the sculpting, the retopology. Then after all of that's done, then you go to UV unwrap, and just textures. And yeah, I guess that kind of makes sense. But I don't know. Maybe if you're an asset artist, like prop designer or artist, you have to do everything in one go.
Yeah. It's something that a lot of like more junior artists do, where they like start building out an environment, and they I mean, it's good to get an idea of like the style you're going for. It's often good to do like a style test with like one asset or like a couple of small assets. But once you're getting into actual production, you don't really need to work everything up to full straight away. You like build it up in passes, and some stuff doesn't even need to be, fully prettified. Like a kind of mid-level of finish can often work just fine for larger environments. It doesn't need to be all 100% beautiful finish.
All right. And the next question is actually kind of an interesting one, because I kind of enjoy the answers I get. What was the first art job paycheck you ever got? Like basically the first money you made out of art. What was it for? When was it? And how did you feel at the time when you actually got it?
For art, my first ever one was, I think I must have been 15, and I did some t-shirt designs for like a vintage clothing shop. So there was this warehouse in Hull near where I lived. And my dad knew a guy that had this vintage clothing shop. So they'd like ship in a bunch of crates of like silk scarves and football jerseys and stuff. And there'd be all these dudes like picking stuff out that was going to go into the shop. So I got to go in sometimes and like pick out a silk scarf that I liked, or a pair of trousers that I liked, or whatever. But there was also this office space like above the warehouse, and I remember getting my hands on Adobe Illustrator, which I still can't use. I can't stand that software. Photoshop all the way. And I had to design a set of like 8 shirts or something like that for this company. And I think over the course of the whole summer working for that company, getting the bus for like an hour every day, I think I made like £400 for the whole of summer. And yeah, I mean, I designed t-shirts. They ended up in the shop. That was pretty awesome. I don't know whether I don't have the shirts anymore. I don't know what happened to them, but I still have the designs though, somewhere on my hard drive.
All right, awesome. And the next question is actually kind of related to also jobs and stuff like that. Any advice and tips for a good portfolio and resume for artists, especially like, environment artists and like basically the same position you're working in? And yeah, any advice and tips like, how to, kind of set up your portfolio? And just one thing I need to mention, one of the things that I kind of, research myself is that among like the junior environment artists who get hired, I usually only see 2 to 3 posts on our station. One of them is usually like an asset breakdown, and one of them is just like a diorama of an environment with all the texture maps, and all the UVs and just every single, the whole steps of the process, of the workflow. But this is what I've noticed, but I want to hear everything from you.
Yeah. So I think a lot of what you see with juniors, like junior project breakdowns, often comes from like being in like university or schools. I think it's a good thing. I like looking at those if just to be nosy. I mean, I am of the opinion that you can generally see from someone's like beauty shots how well they can handle like somewhat anyway, like baking, UVing and stuff like that. You can often see it like in the texture, like there'll be different textile densities on things, and so you can just see that they've like maybe not fully got their head around UVing and stuff yet. But if you're gonna do breakdowns, like absolutely no problem with that. Definitely go for it. I always tend to say to people that having like 2 to 3 like really good projects. So if you want to be an environment artist, having like full environments that have been built out as opposed to just props. If you want to be a prop artist, having props and so on, having stuff that is geared towards what you want to do is the best way to go. But I am a big advocate for building out full, small environments. So I do dioramas. That was my thing that I always used to do. And whether it was like little concepts of dioramas or full 3D built out dioramas, that's what I did. I did them well. They got me hired for my first job and subsequent jobs. And they're very, well, in the grand scheme of environment art anyway, quick to do because they're small. So I think that's super important. And yeah, if you can do breakdowns and stuff with that, that's cool. But yeah, I'm not like fussed what people have done career-wise or where they've worked or how much school stuff they've done, as long as they have the projects to show that they have their head around textile density, they understand the principles of, if it's stylized art, stylization, color, etc. That's what I care about. I don't think I've ever looked at someone's about section on their portfolio, like say on ArtStation, unless I feel like I recognize some work and I'm like, oh, where have they worked? That looks similar to this company's work, sort of thing. But yeah, like 3 pieces to start and then build it up and do what you want.
And oh my god, I mean, I might get a little bit of hate from this, but I kind of, hate how, I mean, I've heard from guests before, but I've kind of said this before, but a lot of the things in the art industry and everything in just game and animation, a lot of the projects you see, not just in 3D, but in concept art, everything is, there's like this kind of disgusting cliche that's just keeps happening when something becomes a trend. Like, I'm kind of like, tired of seeing like, cozy isometric blender kitchen, for the 100th time on Instagram. Like, I'm not saying this call out to anyone in particular, but like I was like, thinking of like doing like isometric thing because I kind of want to work my work on my low poly skills a bit, making like some fun cute environment as well. But then it's I don't know how to say it, like, and the weird thing, I wanted to do like a half brewery, half kitchen. But when you see like it's been done like 100 times, you're like, oh god. And
yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, and you want to come up with something new, and it's hard, I guess. But
yeah, I had a similar hang up with I don't even know how to describe them, but it's always like some sort of house. It's usually got like white plaster with like wooden beams and maybe some like cute like sign hanging off it or something, blue sky, trees, and grass foreground. There's always this like very specific look that I guess like one artist will do it really well and then lots of people replicate it. And I mean, if you do it well, then fair enough, like cool. But I did get a bit sick of seeing like this very similar style of repeat environment art that would go up and I'd just be like, oh yeah, another one. So yeah, I can understand the isometric thing as well. I've seen a lot of that stuff around.
Yeah, and by the way, before we move on, I just want to call myself out right now for what I just said 2 minutes ago. Like, if I actually like to do something, there shouldn't be no barriers to doing me. If I like to do the scene that I just described, I probably should have worked on it. So I guess I'm just making excuses. I just want to like call myself out because I just realized I'm kind of not making sense a bit, but you still get the point of what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I do.
Like
yes.
the repetitiveness of everything. Like in character design and concept art is kind of the same. Like the same soldier everyone does. Like,
Exactly.
Yeah, the environments. It's like some guy with a red or yellow cape over like I don't know distance. And by the way, like of course you need to add a human for a skill, and that's the whole point, right? But when you see like it's the same thing and there's not enough variation to it, it kind of like makes your head tilt a bit,
Yeah, I think definitely there's a lot to be said for, and I'm not saying it's easy, but doing something like unique, which is extremely difficult because the art world is so saturated with amazing artists at the moment, and especially in the world of like Twitter, Instagram, etc. It's hard. But I think it's important to like step away from the computer and don't be inspired by what you're seeing online. Be inspired by what you're seeing in the real world, and like make mashups of things that you like colors that you see, different trees. It doesn't have to be rooted in reality, like fully rooted in reality. You can just be inspired and then make up your own stuff, and then you'll immediately have something that does somewhat stand apart from what other people are doing. But I'm not saying it's easy, it's hard. And I'm saying that as someone that does like concept art like 50% of the time. So, maybe it's easy for me to say.
All right. And but wait, can people right now, like, in environment art, like, position, of course you need to know a little bit of illustration and Photoshop and 2D in that position, but of course that's a different position than 3D environment artist. But is it possible to still get an environment artist job with just barely knowing any 2D? Is that a possibility in 2023?
I mean, if someone's an amazing 3D artist and they can't like draw a stick figure, I think that's fine. Especially because there's a lot of like 3D environment artists that, like, for instance, I don't really use Substance and things like that very often. I'm kind of like an old school environment artist. I did learn Substance years ago, but then just never stuck with it. So like you could say that I lack that skill. Some 3D artists just don't have the 2D skill. I mean, they don't necessarily always need it. So I think you don't need to like know everything and be good at everything. But it definitely, I would say, helps because a lot of jobs that I have done have required me to do a little bit of 2D. And there's definitely an appreciation out there for environment artists that can do 2D and 3D, like even just a little bit of 2D. You'll find that especially the more like indie studios, they really like that and really value it, and it just opens a lot of jobs up to you.
Yeah, definitely. And all right, the next question is kind of interesting one as well. Have you ever used any elements from your dreams as inspirations for your works?
Ooh, interesting question. I think I sometimes go for like, you know how dreams are fuzzy and you can't really pinpoint what the place was like. I mean, sometimes I'll have dreams where there is like a repeat place, but it's more like a vibe of like tranquil spaces. If I have a dream like that, I want to replicate it. But I don't like wake up in the morning and go, oh my God, that was an amazing place. I need to write it down. I need a dream diary, I think, because my brain just erases dreams as soon as I wake up. But yeah, no, I don't think I massively work from dreams. It's just more like a vibe that I want to have, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And another thing, are you one of those type of people who have really visual detailed dreams as well?
Sometimes, yes, but it will be places will only solidify in my mind if they have been repeated in my dreams more than once. So I used to have like a repeating dream that I was like flying around the ceiling of a supermarket for some reason. That happened like 3 times, so I can really vividly recall the place in that dream. And there was another one where I was having a dream that I broke down in my camper van on this really specific stretch of road, and I can visualize that super clearly as well. But often my dreams, like I couldn't even like think of a place in a dream right now. And usually my dreams are kind of more scary than nice because I think I'm quite an anxious person, so I have like anxious dreams.
Oh God. Yeah, I mean, actually, speaking about that, what is your main recurring nightmare? Or what's the theme of it? Because everyone has a recurring thing that happens in their dreams and nightmares.
I used to have one that was being chased, but at the same time, it was like I was really fast, so it was kind of fun, if that makes sense. I could run really fast and I felt like kind of cool and badass. But honestly, the recent one is the camper van breaking down one. I think I'm just really nervous that I'm going to break down and be lost in the middle of nowhere. Mostly more worried about the van breaking than about me being lost. Like, it's nice to be lost. But yeah, that's the main thing I stress about at the moment. It's very present in my mind all of the time.
Interesting. Like, yeah, human brain is really fascinating. Like, I it's like there's so much to do in just one lifetime. Like, if I could have, like, live like 100 years more, like, I don't know, I might even, why do I say 100 years more? Who knows if I live till 100? I might die 2 years later. What am I talking? What am I kidding? But let's say hypothetically, if I could live that long, I would also like want to study like biology and like neuroscience and all that stuff, because just discovering the secrets of brain is like a fascinating subject for me personally. Like, there's so many things we still haven't scratched the surface of, like, not just in art or anything, but just out of everything. And I just, like, how do dreams work? How does the brain work? How do some people have aphantasia, which is a condition where people can't visually imagine things? And actually, there are some artists who I saw interviews in the industry that have aphantasia, which was really fascinating for me. Like, I sound like an alien who's fascinated about humans,
It's crazy that people can't like visualize. But then I've had this sometimes where, there's that thing about people. Some people, when they read, they don't read it in their mind, and some people do. Like, they read it aloud in their mind. I have sat down and like read something, and I still don't know which camp I fall into. And it's the same with like visual memory. Do I have a visual memory, or do I just remember the feel of the place? I actually don't know. I can't tell you like what is happening in my brain. It just is. I just read the thing or see the thing. I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, exactly. I know what you mean. It's like sometimes when I was a kid, like I saw somewhere on like a book or magazine or something, or maybe like something in television, that everyone has a voice in their head while they're talking to themselves or reading something. And I got into this cycle of battling with myself, like, am I really hearing the voice? What voice it is? Like, am I actually, like, this kind of like weird stuff,
Yeah, you start overthinking it and you're like, am I? I don't know what I'm thinking anymore. What a word.
And you have existential crisis after every time come up with this conversation with yourself, and like, what is going on? Yeah. And all right, so the next question is also interesting as well. which is, who are some of your favorite artists and designers that have inspired you the most?
So this changes all of the time. Constantly have different inspirations depending on, I guess, what I'm aspiring to in that moment. Um, but massive fan of Lorenzo Lanfranconi's work, who I think you've had on the podcast. Yeah, I saw
Yep.
that. I love his work because at the moment I'm trying to just become a better painter. So I feel like I kind of have ideas that I like to put out there, but I don't feel like I'm very good at executing them from like a rendering standpoint. And the way he renders stuff is just really inspiring to me. He's really good at getting across a feeling. So yeah, definitely his work is probably some of my favorites. But I mean, if I jump onto my art station and just look at what I've liked, because I'm terrible for this, and I do it with everything like music, photography, whatever. I will just like things like on Spotify, and then I'll just move on and forget who they were, why I care about their things. So I can't even pull names out of my head. There's this amazing artist that I'm trying to find his stuff because he has like a really nice another thing that I really admire is a very nice way of like rendering stylized stuff. And again, I just feel like I guess that's the thing I want right now from working is like rendering nicely. They might have deleted their stuff because of the whole ArtStation AI hubbub.
Yeah.
So things have like vanished from my ArtStation. Yeah, I don't think I can find them. I can't remember their name either, so that's it. They've just vanished to the ether of the internet. That's sad, but they had lovely stylized like rendering style, which I super admired. So I'm gonna have to try and find them again somewhere. Sad times.
Yep. Probably in your Pinterest, if you refresh it a couple of times, one of their works pop up.
Yeah,
know?
that's true. Yeah, for sure. I do have like quite an extensive Pinterest board now of just random stuff from home design things to artists to like,
Same.
weird mugs. Everyone has a home design Pinterest board.
Yep, exactly. Interior design. Like actually I've been really into like, design elements of like interior design of for like traditional Middle Eastern, not just Middle Eastern, like Persian, Moroccan, Afghanistan, like Iraq, Turkey. Like there's like some really nice ornaments that you can take elements from and just make something new with something. Like I like the design philosophy of those areas especially.
Yeah, definitely. That's what I mean about like being inspired by like really random little things. Because like you say, you can take that and then like take it into a whole new context that is just like super cool.
Yeah, exactly. And what are you working on right now that you can tell us about? I mean, of course, if it's something that there's NDA involved, if you can skip right past this question, but if that's not the case, could you at least tell us like what is it, what kind of IP is it? Like, is it a game, movie, animation, what genre?
So I've done like a few different gigs recently, and I just started a new job with Odyssey Interactive, who they're doing like this top-down game with. I haven't played it myself, to be honest, but it's like a hockey, like ice hockey. That's how it looks to me, anyway. Very anime and styled, very inspired, and very colorful. They're an amazing team. Like they're so talented, and their work is awesome. And when they contacted me, I was like, yeah, all right, fine, I'll work on this. Like this looks really cool. So I'm doing environment art for them at the moment, and it's been so smooth getting involved with those guys, and yeah, super fun. It feels like I'm enjoying environment art again, which I have quite long phases where I just feel like I'm fighting with environment art. And this is not one of them. It's really fun. They've got very, very good tech artists, and if you have like good tech artists, environment artists are always going to have a good time.
All right, and okay, so now let's go back into the topic we just briefly opened up in the beginning of the podcast, which was about, just what's going on in our lives and what are your ambitions and just philosophy. And let's just have some, those deep campfire talks, right now. Yeah, actually that I should, instead of general art chat, I should just call this campfire talk because like before that, like, Nah, actually, I shouldn't spoil this because I'll explain later. Because the last question of the podcast, the title was different and it's been changed. But I don't want to spoil it right now for you because
Okay,
I'm
okay.
not sure you know it. So yeah, I
All right.
nearly slipped up. All right, so
Campfire talk. We're gonna do campfire talk. I just need like at least 4 beers in me, and then I'll be able to, like
4 beers. That's a big.
let's
Like
go.
I mean, you're from UK, so I hope I'm not being like stereotypical right now. Like, but
We like our pubs. We got a lot of pubs around.
yeah, I mean, I guess that's not completely inaccurate. Wait, what
like
that is a small?
like a can, like a Coca-Cola can sized beer.
Oh, okay, like 300 cc, kind of like that.
Yeah, exactly. Not like a pint, which is like no, I'd be on the floor. Yeah, no. Let's talk about what I'm doing. What do I want to do? I think I found that, like, because I'm freelancing now, I found that I've been wanting to dial back a little bit on how much I work. So I've been doing like really intense work for a while. Like if I look back at what I was doing during the pandemic, when we were all in lockdown, I was working a full-time job and then also freelancing like 2 days a week on the side. So I was basically working like 7 days a week. And I look back at that and I'm like, I don't really know how I had energy or time for that. And I think I've been a little bit burnt out for a while since then. So I now am kind of just trying to chill out a little bit more and take time off and work shorter weeks. So like 4 or 3 day weeks is kind of ideal for me. And hopefully at some point start doing personal work a little bit more. Like I said, I haven't really done like a personal 3D project for I think 2 years at this point, and that makes me sad. I want to do that again. I don't think my life should center around art, but I do identify as an artist, and I want to be able to get back on feeling like I'm an artist and not just a art creator for work kind of thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And all right, so there's something else I want to ask. What I know this might get a little bit deep and philosophical, so yeah. What gives you the most amount of feeling of, like, basically, all right, let me rephrase it this way. Sorry, I'm kind of messing up. What has been the most rewarding experience that you could, think of right now in your life?
Becoming a freelancer definitely satisfied me a lot because it means that I can take off more time and kind of build my life around work or work around my life. I guess building work around my life. My life takes precedent. Like my what I do in my work does like satisfy me a lot, but at the moment I'm just trying to take a bit of time away from work. So I like I can't believe I did this. I bought a camper van and I'm like planning to go away on holiday for ever. I just want to travel like nonstop. So I'll go up to Scotland and things like that, and that has been terrifying, but also just satisfying knowing that I've reached a stage in my life where I am comfortable enough to say, okay, I'm going to stop working for a little bit now and just step away and go and just get away for a little bit and not be working 5 days a week. So it's been a very long, slow process, like mentally and in terms of my career to reach this point. But I think I can kind of say with some confidence now that I'm in a position where I can slow down a little bit, which is very nice. And so I'm looking forward to having a few more interesting life experiences, hopefully, as a result.
Your answer makes me wonder, as if humans weren't meant to work in cubicles all day.
Work all the time. Yeah, I know. It was crazy, right?
Crazy. right? And like, here's the thing: like, I don't have like a jungle or forest area around my house, but I swear to God, if I had one of those natural areas I could go to, I would just wake up at 4 a.m. and just go mess around in the woods, like, just alone by myself. Like, I don't know, it's just some energy that nature has, I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
definitely.
just going around walking, just observing stuff, listening to sounds, but especially if you're living in a city like Istanbul, you don't really get that experiences like that unless you have to travel like
Uh,
40, 50 kilometers outside the city.
oh my goodness.
Which admit 4 or 5 a.m. there's not much good. There's public transport, but it's like it comes around every hour or so, like, on certain stations. So yeah, it's not very accessible. Let's just say that, and
Yeah.
yeah, it gets kind of weird.
Yeah, I
And
mean, I can kind of like just go for, like, if I walk out of my front door, I am basically in a nature reserve, and the sky here is really dark. So the sky, you can see all the stars, super clear. Can sort of, you'll go out for walks. I mean, I was out in at the shop today, and I drove back, and there was just a deer like laying in a field eating grass, which looked like a really nice thing to do. Like, you just lay on the floor and just eat, and that's all you're doing that day. So I was just like looking at the deer, and yeah, there's like a bird feeder outside my window with, and we get like a woodpecker that comes every day, and there's a pheasant that comes every day, and I like looking at like the birds, and yeah, I like nature.
yeah, and also two questions about your plan that you have to travel around with your, with the van that you said you bought, right?
Mhm.
And first of all, are you going to travel alone? Aren't you going to have a pet or something with you, like a dog, perhaps?
I wish I had a dog. Well, I kind
You
of do, and I
could have
kind
a
of don't.
dog. Oh, the
I,
responsibility thing. Yeah,
yeah, it's
remember.
a lot of responsibility. I hate having responsibility. Yeah, so I was planning to go solo, but my partner is probably going to come with me. And I like, last time, I've had this van for almost a year now, and I've done a few like small trips and met people on the go. So there's like people that will probably try and meet up with. I'm going to Scotland, so it's quite spacious and there isn't a lot of people there, but I'm hoping to maybe meet a few like other women in their camper vans. Who There's a lot of single women that have camper vans that I met while I was also a single woman in my camper van. So you just make friends that way. But hopefully I'll meet up with some of them. But yeah, it'll probably be me and my partner just traveling around.
Yeah, that's actually interesting. I think there's this kind of trend that I've kind of seen as well. A lot of like single women who are taking on the solo travel life, and I think it's kind of fascinating when you just like there's kind of like this statistical anomalies, like, out of everything that could happen like in the past decade. Like, for example, one of the things that's really on us is actually that you just look at Instagram or YouTube, like there's so many, like I think actually maybe I'm ignorant by saying this, but the ratio of like, solo actual like real solo travelers, not those, fancy bougie solo travelers, no, actual like hardcore solo travelers, and a lot of women who actually do that, which is kind of like, I think, insane and nice, to be honest.
Yeah, I
And
mean, I think there are. I couldn't say what the ratio is for me, but it's mostly single people, because what happens is people have marriages and then the marriage falls apart, and one person will get the house, the other person will maybe get some money, and they spend the money on a van, and then they're just like, well, I'm 50 and I've got, like, my kids have grown up or whatever, and they'll just be like, okay, I'm just gonna go and travel. And I think it's awesome. Like, I've met so many just like cool independent people, male and female, who are just traveling around, and it's a really cool lifestyle. I mean, it takes commitment. I'm not sure I could do it forever, but doing it for a little bit.
to be honest, I kind of want to do that, but I'm a super minimalistic person. Like, I generally just want a small backpack, maybe a stick,
Mhm.
sandals, a hat, and
Well,
preferably a bicycle.
oh, that's a good idea, actually. Yeah, that
Yeah,
makes way more sense. Yeah.
or a motorcycle.
Mm.
Yes.
I've got a few friends that do that as well. There's like a split of, unfortunately, not many of my like friends pre-camper van purchase have camper vans. There's a couple that I know that have vans, but for some reason, tons of my friends bought motorbikes, like loads, and they all meet up and meet other bikers, and yeah, they seem to have pretty cool travels. But if it rains, and it rains a lot here in the UK, you're going to have a bad time. And that's the main thing. It's very nice to get in my van, close the doors, and just listen to the rain on the roof, and I'm dry and warm.
And also my main question I wanted to have about this is, of course, you said you're not going to be alone, but let's say you were going to travel alone for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Would you get a warrant or like something for a weapon or something for safety?
Here in the UK, you're not allowed weapons. Like,
really?
You can't have pepper spray. Obviously, there's no guns.
Pepper spray? What?
Pepper spray is illegal. So I have done a bit of traveling solo, and I generally have felt safe. I would park up in such a way that I'm like near other people in vans, or I'm somewhere where I'll always reverse my van in so I can like get into my van quickly. I've got like a hatch that I fit through in case I need to like really quickly get into the driver's seat of the van. But I do have a large fire extinguisher by the door, and I also have a knife rack with lots of knives. So if I needed to, I do have knives in case someone attacks me. I wouldn't just attack someone with a knife, just to be clear, but self-defense and all that.
You know what would be nice? Having a stick, like duct tape a knife to it. That would be, I think, more smarter and not just a knife. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'd be very good at close quarters fighting. Yeah. I have zero fighting experience, so I'd probably be useless. But yeah.
The reason I'm saying all of this is because I'm from Iran. I'm Iranian, by the way. I'm just living in Turkey. I'm not Turkish. But the thing is, in Iran, the experience of life is a bit different, especially right now. I'm not going to go too much in details, of course. It's not necessary. But the thing is, imagine like, as soon as you're like 4 or 5 years old or 6, 7 years old, or going to school, you always hear these stories of your classmate getting kidnapped. It happened to one of my classmates actually when I was in first grade.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and like you hear people like, there's all this acid attacks, like people like mugging people with acid, knives, just everything. It's like a wild wasteland to some extent, and you're always on the edge, like, and I think that gave me a lot of anxiety, and I always have this deep-seated, rooted anxiety of like always getting attacked, especially when I'm in Turkey. Like I always have, like, the only weapon I have is just my key in the middle of my fingers as like a punching bag or something. But I always get nervous because I've been to like I nearly got mugged twice in my life, and yes, you would think that you would be scared, but it's just a weird feeling because your body gets filled with adrenaline. I mean, for people it's different, but for me, I kind of turn into a ticking time bomb. Like I don't care if I get damaged, I just want to go all out. But hopefully those 2 times, that the 2 people realize I'm kind of like, like a bit not unhinged a bit, for the lack of better. Once it happened when I was 16, another time happened when I was 23 or something. Like no, actually 23. I'm sorry, 22. Yeah, because it happened in Iran. And yes, that's why I always, anytime I see people talk about solo travel, all of that. What did I ask you before the recording? What's the knife like a stabbing epidemic in UK? Like
yeah, right. Yeah, it's generally fine. Like obviously you might run into someone that is like insane or whatever, but I've never really had any issues. I think the main thing I'm nervous about with the van is that the van's going to get stolen. Like, I think that's far more likely that someone's going to break into the van and take my stuff, or they're going to take the whole van. Yeah, just like that's the main thing I'm scared about. I'm not worried that someone's going to stab me particularly. I don't think. No.
You know what would be cool, actually? Those, I think I saw videos, those retractable, this small metal cylinders, and when you press it, like a metal pole comes up, like a metal stick.
Yeah, I've had that recommended to me by a police officer because when I was at university, my house got broken into, and I was like, just theoretically, if I hit him with a wine bottle, would I get arrested? And he was like, maybe don't do that, but you can get these keyrings. And he was like, they're illegal. You're not supposed to have them, but they don't know that. Like, as long as you're not like waving it around, like if you're getting attacked, you could just, yeah. Because you hear about people with doing the keys between the knuckles thing, but apparently that's quite dangerous for you. Like, you can hurt yourself, and it's not really going to do much to protect you, kind of thing.
yeah, it's like in general, like, oh my god, just imagine like I'm just trying to imagine the faces of people listening to this podcast at this point. Like, what?
We talk about art sometimes.
Yeah, and no, but I think that's what I love about the podcast. It's just this talks, to be honest. Like, the thing is, actually, like, see, people learn valuable like life lessons and tips. It's not just art. And so, yeah, I mean, that's what makes this podcast unique, I guess. But with the kitchen thing, actually, yes, true. Like, in general, in most self-defense, not most, like all self-defense situations, if you don't have a glove or a tape over your knuckles, don't try to use them. I don't care if you're a world champion or something. Like, everyone says that. Your knuckles could get easily broken. They're made for tiny, intricate, detailed work, not for, like, punching,
people, yeah.
Yeah, not punching hard things, and if you're going to punch with here, like, and
good to know.
And the place you should always target for punching is the chin area, and here this place is packed with nerves. Like, you see these boxers and MMA fighters, when they get touched a little, they just shut down. Yeah, and
okay, that's good.
Yeah, just like it, like here, and boom.
I don't think I'd have very good aim. I think I would just miss. I would be like genuinely useless in a fight. I hope I never end up in a fight.
But the thing with the sticks, I love it. Sticks and batons actually are my favorites. Like baseball bats, the sticks, batons, like blunt weapons are my basic favorite. Weapons when it comes to self-defense and fighting. Especially sticks, you can do a lot with a stick. Like because I kind of trained for 5-6 years in the martial arts with like sticks when I was younger.
That's cool.
There's a lot of things you can do with sticks. It's amazing.
I need to buy a big stick, clearly.
Those things that retract, if I could actually buy them, I would buy them right now on the spot.
Yeah.
The problem is they're metallic, and you can't really pass them through security gate. Actually, I always have this weird talks with anyone I come up with self-defense stuff. I'm sorry, but actually, I had this talk with one of my artist friends as well. We were hanging out in the subway somewhere, and was like, you know what would be a good startup idea? Making a startup by manufacturing 3D printed weapons, self-defense weapons like knives. But do you know why out of plastic? Because they could smuggle that in securities in airports and anywhere. Some metallic, just plastic self-defense weapons. That's amazing.
Let's go. Let's do it.
Like now the security system have to develop a system to detect plastic at that point, Yeah. But I think we can all agree that all of us, especially anyone who played Assassin's Creed, everyone's wet dream was like this hidden blade here.
Yeah, the wrist blade for sure.
Oh my God,
I love it.
Yeah, like I remember when I was 12. When 12 or I don't know, but around the time Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, yes, I think it was Brotherhood came upon. Which I think, have you played that when you were in Rome? Yeah. There's Leonardo da Vinci, that one. I remember I was so fascinated. I was trying to make hidden blades from YouTube tutorials. I was trying to make I made meat from the YouTube tutorials because I played the Skyrim. Like, I was that type of kid, like that nerd. I legit did, actually, by the way. And I was trying to make smoke bombs from the Brotherhood as well. Like, I was like, oh, you need KNO3, like potassium nitrate, and I was like, oh, it's illegal, I can't buy that, I need a permit for that. Like, I was actually going through this stuff. Like, actually, you can. It's a wonderful world if you get into, like, just crafting your own stuff. Like, but yeah, apparently a lot of things are a lot of fun things in your life are illegal. Who knew,
Yeah, it's funny that.
Yeah. Woo. All right. Just one last thing before we move on to the next segment. What makes you the happiest in life?
Whew. I don't know. That changes all the time. Like, for a while I thought that buying a house would make me happy. Like having my own space that I can cultivate, because I love houseplants. Like, so that was the main thing, was just like buying a house to put all my houseplants in. But then, and I thought that living in like a certain place in the country would make me happy. Like having friends nearby, London nearby, etc., etc. But now I'm not there. I'm actually kind of okay with not being there. So what makes me happiest in life? I don't know. I don't really know. It just changes all the time. I'm trying to figure that out still. I think a lot of people are. I don't think anyone really knows. Or maybe they do. If they do, could they call me, please? But yeah, I think I just want to be like good at painting and make cool art. Ideally for me, I'd love to get back into physical painting and just, I think the thing that really makes me happy is having physical projects that I can work on. So, like buying the camper van, for instance, I've been doing tons of work in there, like painting, making bits for it, planning it out. That makes me really happy. So maybe in that sense, having a house would make me happy because I can do like weird interior design stuff and finally bring all my Pinterest boards to life. But yeah, I don't really know. I honestly don't know. A lot of it would have to be a very perfect mixture of a lot of different things to make me happiest in life. So I don't know. It's a very complicated answer, I know.
Yeah, I know, like, but I think it's mostly the same for, like, most people. Like, there's like a collection of things that make you happy, but, you know, I guess the best way to answer this question, because by the way, just a fun fact, this is the first time I'm asking anyone on this podcast this question. Like, this is because this is the origin of Campfire Talk segment,
Yeah.
Like, and yeah. I think a good strategy to answer questions like this is you have to see in what moments when you are the most present and you're in the flow.
Yeah,
Like for
100%.
me, I've never had a dog, but if I was like had a wonderful, happy dog, I mean, dogs are amazing in general. They're intelligent, they're loving, they're passionate, they feel when you're sad. I wish I could have a dog, honestly, because I live alone. I can't have any pets, But yeah, exactly. And for me, like if I could like enjoying a sunset or like I don't know, just looking at a sunset over some place like outside the city, hopefully with my dog. There's like my picnic stuff around. Like that's something that I could really truly live in the moment for. And of course, I don't want to get too complicated or philosophical again, but there's some might argue that you can always be present with meditation and blah blah blah. No, I can't do that. Yeah, exactly. I mean,
not that bothered about meditating.
Yeah, I mean, meditating is great, but it's basically the practice of being present. That's it, in the most basic form of it. But
yeah, I think I want to put myself in as many, like you say, those present moments as possible, and most of those have been when I have. Usually, it's summer. Usually, I've like made a little bit of a trip plan in my mind, similar to you. I've usually got some sort of like picnic or packed lunch with me, and I'm driving out somewhere or I'm walking out somewhere. There's usually water to sit by. It might be a beach or a lake or a pond, and if I can just sit down alone with my food and just enjoy the sun. Maybe there's a book or something like that, but that is my absolute happy place. And I don't need to meditate when I have that. Like I'm super happy. I'm warm, I'm comfortable, I've got food, there's water, it's pretty. Yeah, that's it. If I could just be like that forever, I would love that.
Yeah. Then after the sunset is happening, you can get drunk and sleep peacefully. Oh my god.
Yes, exactly. And usually fall asleep in my camper van because that's how I get to those places. So yeah, hopefully I'm moving in that direction already, and maybe that'll be me this summer, just every day.
That's great. I'm happy to hear that. Good for you. Like for me, I recently experienced one of those moments. Which is really rare, especially these days. Without going into too much details, life has been kind of quite chaotic this past couple of months and interesting years for me.
Sorry to hear that. Yeah,
no worries. I mean, I'm actually doing better now, and the thing is, like couple of 2 weeks ago around, I went into a cafe to meet up with two of my old language classmates here, like Turkish language class. The two classmates, we were supposed to meet up in a cafe and went there. They ordered, hookah?
Yes.
Yeah, but like shisha, they call it, here in Turkey, they call it nargile. That's the name for it, all right?
Okay.
And in Iran, we call it qayyum. Like, why does it have so many names? Like, like ananas is ananas all over the world except English, of course. But like this thing device has so many names everywhere. Jesus. But let's just go with hookah, all right? So we ordered hookah, and the food came, the hookah came, and they had to. The both of them left very quickly, and they were like, "Ranti, aren't you going to stay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to stay. I want to enjoy this," because I haven't smoked that hookahs for like a year and 2 months or so. And let me tell you something. I decided to live in the moment, because I was so stressed. That hookah started to slowly calm down my nervous system. All right, I was getting lightheaded a bit nicely, and you know what I did? I got the same headphones that I'm listening to right now and talking with you. I put on the Fallout New Vegas soundtrack playlist, which is my favorite game of all time, like the Radio New Vegas, and I put that, and I was like, enjoying the hookah, and at the same time I rotated my pillows, and I just had the view of outside where cars were passing by. It was just like a nice experience,
Yeah, that sounds nice.
And I ordered tea with some sweets, and it was a cherry on top, and oh my god.
Yeah, you gotta cherish those little moments.
Yeah, and here's an important thing for anyone who's listening. Try to learn how to have fun by yourself. Like, that is really important. Just be complete by yourself. I know this maybe doesn't get to the like philosophical again, but I'm just gonna leave it at that. Just try to work on that. That's actually set it as a goal. Not gonna get in, because it's gonna have this subject could branch out to a lot of things, but I'm just gonna leave it at that. That's like a good point to think about. What do you think about that, actually?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Totally, completely agree. That's something I've been working on in myself, for sure. Because I've always been in relationships, and you end up just like being with that person all of the time. And so I've spent quite a lot of time last year just focusing on being on my own. And I think you find your own identity a lot better. You find the things that you like, and it's just good. It's so good for you to be on your own and just enjoy being alone, and enjoying the space. So could not agree more. Very, very good point.
Awesome. And all right. Remember the segment when I said I don't want to spoil it for you? That's been changed or stuff like that. Before that, before episode 75, actually, in season 1 of the podcast, it was called Timeline. And I would ask, just a breakdown of their journey. That's it in simple form. But then I changed it to Time Capsule. Yes, that's a thing I try to, hide it from you so it wouldn't be spoiled. But the name is kind of self-explanatory, but do you know what a time capsule is? I'm sure you do. Yeah. And so, all right, we're preparing a time capsule, and it's your turn to say anything you want. It could be anything. It doesn't have to be about art. And this is your moment to shine and just try to formulate your intentions in words so you could have an impact on any person who might hear it in the future. It could be anything, by the way. You don't have to worry about it being cliche, by the way, because that's the most common thing I hear from people when I present this answer. Just go.
Oh, gosh. Well, I mean, we've already talked about a lot of stuff that I'm going to probably back at and laugh at. But I guess the big thing is my plan this year is to actually, at a point in spring, stop working so hard and go away in my van and just enjoy Scotland. And I have so many things in my head that are going to go wrong on this trip. And I can't wait to see myself in like a year's time, and just maybe the trip ended after a week, or maybe the trip ended, maybe I'll still be away in the van in a year's time. Who knows? And so I will be delighted to see where I'm at in a year's time with the van thing. And then also just what I'm doing work-wise. Like, am I still doing like the work I'm doing now, or did I just decide to pack it all in and go and open an antique shop? Because that's something I'd love to do. So that's the big thing. But to future Anya and to anyone else listening to this podcast, just do the things. Don't stress. Don't worry. Just do it. YOLO. Go do stupid things and enjoy life.
Go do stupid things and enjoy life. I actually love that sentence. Honestly.
They'll feel stupid at the time, but they're probably, gonna broaden your horizons. Quit the job. Buy the stupid camper van. Yeah. Very poignant words. Exactly. Do the stupid thing.
I love that sentence. Thank you. And all right, we've reached the end of this episode. I hope everyone enjoyed the fun life lessons along the art tips as well. And where can people contact you if they had any questions, by the way?
They're welcome to contact me on Twitter. My handle is Anya_the_artist. Or they can email me, anya.elvidge@hotmail.co.uk, which is a very old school email address, but it's there and everyone laughs every time I say I have it. But I'm happy to answer questions, give feedback on projects, whatever. I'm about all of the time. I never leave my desk. I'm chained to it forever. Help.
All right. That's interesting. So yeah, thank you so much for coming by, and thank you to anyone who tuned in and listened to this episode as well. I hope you enjoyed it, and well, take care everyone. Till next episode, stay safe, and see you in episode 206, I guess, which is actually like a really interesting guest. I'm just gonna say this. He was one of the lead artists on a lot of Bethesda games, Skyrim, Fallout 3. Like, he's an interesting person. Yeah, keep an eye out. All right, take care. Bye bye.